Hello there, this is my first ever video, especially for my Year 11s this year, and it's an extension of something we've been working on in class. We've been looking at the question desire, and we started off by looking at love's philosophy. I'm just going to quickly run through Sonnet 29. I'm going to try and do this in 5 minutes, and I'm trying to think about skills, quick annotation skills that you could use when you do your English Literature Paper 2 anthology question. So I'm going to try and set a little bit of a timer for myself now, which is just going to be for 5 minutes, and see if we can quickly annotate this poem and pick out some of the key methods, themes, context, structural features to do with desire in this poem. Here we go. First of all, I'm going to write the word desire at the top just to make sure that I'm aware of my focus. You'll have to forgive my handwriting, I'm stretching around the camera here as well. Sonnet 29, we know straight away from the word sonnet that this is going to be a love poem. And Elizabeth Barrett Browning we know a little bit about, from her anthology, Married to Robert, who wrote Love's Philosophy. And we know that they used to send some love letters to each other as well. And this poem could potentially be one of those documents as well that they used to write for each other. It might be part of their relationship between them. I'm going to quickly read through the poem and think about how I'm going to split it up. So I think of thee, my thoughts do twine and bud, about thee as wild vines about a tree, put out broad leaves and soon there's naught to see, except the straggling green which hides the wood. Yet, O my palm tree, be it understood, I will not have my thoughts instead of thee, who art dearer, better. Rather, instantly renew thy presence, as a strong tree should, rustle thy boughs and set thy trunk all bare, and let these bands of greenery which ensphere thee drop heavily down, burst, shattered, everywhere. Because in this deep joy, to see and hear thee, and breathe within thy shadow a new air, I do not think of thee, I am too near thee. I'm going to try and break this up as we've been working on in class in terms of the beginning, middle and end structure of this poem, and I'm looking at the sentences here. We count the sentences that we've got here, we don't have too many, but this first sentence, which leads nicely into a quatrain, if we remember our sonnet terminology, I'm going to break this off here as my beginning. And then I'll just use a different colour. So then I'm thinking about my end as well. Where did my end come on? I'm thinking about these last two lines. Maybe this third one, there's a change in tone here as well, which we'll talk about later on. So I'm going to have that as my end, which means that the bit in the middle is the middle. Lots of middle, but for us today, this is going to be our middle. Okay, so I've split my poem up now. Let's have a look a little bit more as to why and what features I'm picking out of here. So I'm thinking about her desire. What is the speaker's desire? Who is the speaker? We've said maybe that the speaker might be Barrett Browning herself. We've got this first person here. So we've got a potential female speaker here. I'm just going to make these notes and going through. My thoughts do twine and bud about thee as wild vines about a tree, put out broad leaves and soon there's naught to see, except the straggling green which hides the wood. We can't deal with anything, so we've got to be quite selective here. So we know that we've got this female speaker. What is it that she's talking about to start with? Well, she's introducing us here to her thoughts. She's saying, my thoughts, and this is a line that reoccurs later on. We know we've got the possessive pronoun my here as well. And they do twine and bud. Okay, and bud again is something that's beginning to open out, but the word twine is an interesting one. Twine suggests that there is something maybe constricting about these thoughts that she has. Like these thoughts maybe limit her in some way, that the thoughts maybe are not enough if they're perhaps not giving her the satisfaction that she needs. About thee as wild vines, this word again here stands out. We've been looking for this in lessons, and we've been thinking about words that we can give kind of dual meanings or alternative interpretations to. We can think about this word wild, this adjective here. We said about the positioning of the adjectives as well, and this is pre-modifying the noun vines here. So these wild vines, this adjective, what's the connotations of it? Well, connotation one Could be these wild vines that she has means that they're not cultivated, they're not orderly thoughts, if you will. If we keep going back to our, I guess, kind of natural imagery that we've got here, I've just got an eye on a clock and realising that 5 minutes might be miles too ambitious, but we'll keep going. So they might not be quite cultivated, these thoughts that she's having. Also, if they're wild, they might be quite carefree. And again, we can maybe link to societal attitudes at the time and how women were perhaps not allowed explicitly to be talking about their wild thoughts for men in society. So societal women's role at that time, and then we might say that this is one of our buzzwords that we like to use, is some kind of transgressive behaviour or a transgressive thought that she has here. It's quite lustful. So she's got these wild thoughts about a tree, and now this tree that we've picked out here, this is the object of her desire. This is a metaphor for her male partner, maybe Robert Browning or maybe somebody else, but here this is the object of the desire. So this tree, object of the desire. It's a metaphor for man. So we've got here now, as we start to break down this poem, we've got a couple of methods that we could pick out of here to be starting to form some sort of opinion on the beginning. What is it that she desires? She desires this tree. Of course, she doesn't desire a tree. She's desiring the man. Okay. Why does she desire this man? Well, we could then link back to this adjective wild. Then we could go into our alternative interpretations if we can. Maybe talk about her thoughts. But let's just stick with this idea of the tree for now, because the tree then reappears in the second bit. Again, we're talking about splitting this up. These words here, the yets, the buts, the ands, these are conjunctions, and these often signify some sort of change. So they help us, guide us through, these signpost us through some poems, especially sonnets, because we're looking for those voltas as well and thinking of changes. So yet, my palm tree. So I'm just thinking about this idea of the tree here. Now, we had a tree to start with, but in this middle section, we could make a little bit more of the tree, because the tree is described in two different ways. The tree has now changed from just being any ordinary tree. Now we've got a palm tree. What's the connotations of that? Well, something exotic. Something different from what a lady in England at that time might be exposed to. So we've got this palm tree, so there is something kind of foreign and attractive about this in a different kind of way, like we're saying, an exotic type of way. And again, this tree is then later on, we've got this, again, another adjective here, pre-modifying it. We've got the strong tree, okay, reinforcing that masculine stereotype. I'm just going to put in there masculine quality here, okay, for a object of desire. Palm tree is something that's exotic, it's something that's quite masculine, something that's quite manly, okay. So our thoughts are beginning to change now about this tree. It's gone from being a plain ordinary tree, as we structurally move on, this image of the tree is extended and it becomes a palm tree and a strong tree. And actually, as we keep with the natural imagery of the tree here, we see her desires perhaps coming out again in the text, because what she wants is the object of her desires, this metaphorical tree, to rustle its boughs. She wants the trunk to be exposed and all bare, and there's this idea here of kind of nakedness. And again, a physical wanting. Her thoughts to go back now, and this might be to go back to her thoughts, because again, this is a phrase that's repeated throughout the poem. We might go back to her thoughts. We're getting a sense as this poem goes on that these thoughts that twined and budded at the beginning, they're now, her thoughts are not enough. She needs more than thoughts. She needs tangible, kind of concrete objects to be able to desire. She basically doesn't want to think of her partner at this point. She actually physically wants her partner at this point. So that's quite important from the speaker here. So these thoughts here that's going on, they're becoming perhaps these thoughts more, like we say, we might keep with this word exotic here as they go throughout. But again, as this tree goes on to develop, we can see that there's this physical wanting, this lusting after her partner that she's got here. Okay, we've also got some comparative adjectives here. If we keep going with our terminology of dearer and better. And we might want to say that these thoughts, I will not have my thoughts instead of thee, because this person, the physical person, this physical being that she's thinking or writing about here is dearer to her, is better to her than more than thoughts, okay? But she needs him in his physical form, okay? To the point where actually it becomes quite violent. You could pick out some verbs later on down here like burst and shattered if you wanted to, but I'm going to skim over them. They're not really fitting with my thoughts so far here, because my thoughts, we see this change again through the poem. My thoughts, her thoughts maybe you can argue were enough at the beginning, then they start to become not enough for her, and then by the end, I do not think of thee, I am too near thee. This last line really changes the poem here. Thoughts has now gone into past tense. She no longer thinks of him. She doesn't have to think of him. I'm just going to move this up, sorry. She doesn't have to think of him anymore because he is there. Okay, and when he is there, there is something much more pleasing and desirous to her, because then we start to move on to this idea of a deep joy. Okay, and again focusing on the adjective that pre-modifies this abstract noun here, joy. Okay, so suddenly when they are together, her thoughts are not needed anymore because she's fallen into this sense of deep joy. She can now see and she can hear him. She can breathe within thy shadow and newer. No longer does she need to think of him because she is too near him now. Okay, and this is an interesting line, I'm too near you. You can go into different ways of which you might want to try and analyse that. Okay, but I began thinking about how we can track things throughout poems. Hopefully if you can take anything out of this for today, you can think about how you can track ideas, images throughout poems. And again, my thoughts, and then the shift at the end from the beginning to the end, my thoughts, they're enough perhaps at the beginning for her, but actually the more she starts to think about her object, her desirous object, this metaphorical tree, her thoughts then become wild. They do start to become fantastical when she's talking about palm trees. They do start to become kind of exotic and erotic when she talks about the strong trees, and she's thinking of these masculine qualities that the phallic symbol of the tree could be. And then at the end, from my thoughts we've got to I think. Okay, so now it's in the past tense. I do not think of thee. I do not need to think of my partner anymore. I don't need to have these desirous thoughts because physically I can reach out, I can touch him, I can see him, I can hear him, I can almost breathe within thy shadow and almost smell him again here. Okay, so she's very, very near to him at the end. Almost a little bit obsessive towards the end might be a point that you want to draw out of there as well. Okay, I hope that's been of some use to you, and I know that I've gone well over 5 minutes, so I've got a lot to work on to try and keep my timing down. But that's it for tonight. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye bye.